name's David Davoren, working in Openet 12 years now, joined in 2010, so Openet's now an Amdocs company, and hopefully here for another good few years as well. So my background before Openet was I was with Lake Communications for about 8 years, which was doing hardware and software for PBXs, and had kind of got into, voice over IP stuff and really liked the software side of things. So came into Openet as a senior engineer to the master level, and when we flipped over to Openet as an Amdocs company, the master, basically their top level is a principal engineer. So my current title is principal engineer. But I suppose over that 12 years, I got a chance to see, as you grow in your career, obviously you've got some decisions to make as to where you want to go. Do you want to go into architecture, stay more as a coder, get into the bit of a management style, maybe a program manager? So I've done a bit of everything, and Openet kind of gave me the chance to do kind of technical lead, do a kind of team lead, which is more management as well, performance review type stuff, and also get into architecture. And from my point of view, I wanted to stay purely technical. So principal engineer is obviously, technically leading, technically directing the company as well, and working a bit on architecture, but also keeping probably 50% coding as well. So you got that 50-50 split as you move up the levels. But I think the good thing was that I was able to try different things and figure out what fitted for me. You don't get pigeonholed into, you're a bit older, you're a manager. That's not how it works. So they like to keep their best engineers doing engineering stuff and keep them happy. There's no point in putting someone who wants to be writing code or doing design work or doing architecture managing people if they're not happy managing people. But there's some engineers that are brilliant at managing people, and they understand the engineering behind it as well. Yeah, so that's where I am now, and fairly happy. So I suppose principal engineer itself, it's the top level technical piece. So there's no step up to another technical piece, but within principal engineer, there's different principal engineers that do different things. So there's not just one size fits all. So some of our principal engineers would probably be doing maybe 70% coding, 30% design work and stuff like that. And they're guys that really love the design and coding point of view. I'm still doing a small bit of program management, more in touch with the architects, the program managers. So a lot of my work might be planning meetings, deciding what we need to do and what can be done. What's the customer requirements? So you're getting a lot of requirements coming in from the business. So they're coming in from program managers who obviously are fighting for their customer to get their stuff. So you have to kind of get through the weeds, figure out what's the capacity of the team. So you're working with project managers. So you're seeing it from the top up to top down, right? So you're seeing business requirements coming in. You're chatting with the stakeholders. So engineering manager will be involved at that point, program managers and project managers. And you've got a big bucket of business requirements coming in, but you've also got technical requirements and strategic stuff you need to do. So it's trying to balance that, keep all the customers happy, get the features in, but also doing strategic stuff. And principal engineers have that trust of the upper management. They're going to take our views and go with our views if we're feeling strongly on stuff. And then once that's done, we also get the chance to work on the design and also work on the code. So as a principal engineer, I'm not fully working on the creation of epics and stuff like that. If you're an architect, that's more what you're doing. But from a principal engineer that's working in code, you're getting about 50% time working on code. If you want to go down the architecture route and you're mainly doing design work and feeding stuff into teams, that path is there as well. I do a bit of that, but my preference is to stay tight to the code as well. There's 3 or 4 different paths you could go down within the principal engineer, so it's not pigeonholed. It suits the needs of the person, which is good, right? Okay, so I'll just give you probably worth a bit of history on the tech stack in Openet to give you an idea of how it's evolved and all the different technologies we've used and the challenges, I suppose. Our previous technology was mainly a C++ house with some Java that came in, and we were working like the telecoms is always slightly behind. It's a slower moving industry in regard to tech, right? But it's actually starting to catch up in regard to the 4G and 5G specs and coming into cloud-based environments and what the customers get from a cloud-based environment, so ease of pushing out features. There used to be a lot of vendor lock-in, but now they've actually broken up a lot of nodes within the 5G infrastructure, which means vendors can just implement different APIs. But from a day-to-day point of view, our old platform was very static, right? The usual monoliths installed. Moving to cloud, obviously we need to be a more dynamic application, auto discovery, the usual stuff that you get with cloud. So you need your service mesh, you need to be to support auto discovery. We need to understand from an application writer point of view, what do we need to do to properly support a cloud-based environment easily? Now we have, with our old framework, kept the diameter stack and evolved that to allow it to work in a cloud-based environment. But there was a lot of work required to get there, right? So we built a new Java-only application. So I've kind of evolved from, when I started, I was purely C++ with a small bit of Java, and now I mainly work in Java. Now, as it happens, I was actually doing some C++ today, so you're still getting to delve back into different programming languages. We also have, usual scripting languages, like you're doing some stuff with Bash and potentially Python and stuff from day to day. But from an expertise point of view, probably Java and to a lesser extent C++. But there will always be a bit of C++ work there if someone would like to go back and do some stuff on what we call the signal manager and DRB. So from a day to day, using Java, we've an OSGI is our container technology. From the protocol point of view, diameter, service-based interface with REST. So it's kind of newer tech in the telecoms world where they've gone from GTP and diameter into a service-based architecture, which is more similar to kind of web applications, right? That's where we're able to harness open source third-party software with Vertex and stuff like that. So again, we're moving into cloud, and what that gives you is, from a day-to-day, like today I was working on Kubernetes is kind of the orchestration technology we use, so everybody's aware of that. But in regard to Kubernetes, day-to-day, I use coin clusters locally. I've used micro Kubernetes, Minikube. So you get exposed to deploying in Kubernetes, debugging in Kubernetes, also obviously using Docker. That's our technology for building the images. Kubernetes obviously isn't bound to Docker anymore, but that's our technology for the build of our images. And if your preference is to work on framework stuff, you could go in the SBA team, you could go in the ECS team. If you have a preference for charging, but you're still going to be working on the application side of the charging stuff in Java, in that new technology, using Kubernetes and kind, and the same with OPC. And the good part about that is, like, we had a guy on our team for about a year and a half in SBA. He liked working in the core, but he wanted to get a bit of exposure to policy flows. So, we put in a request, can I go and work in the policy team? And that was fine. A couple of months, he kind of ramped down on what he was working on. He went up to the policy team, which was great for him, but it's also great for the company because he had loads of framework experience that he brought up to the policy team. And the same vice versa, the policy team, some of the policy guys may decide they want to work in SBA core. So we have another guy that's actually back in SBA core that had worked in one of the other teams as well. There is that option to move around, which is good for the engineer to keep them interested, but also good for the company because then you start spreading knowledge around the company. The tech stack we have there, obviously Java is our main programming language. So Java exposure is something that we would need, but from the point of view of the other stacks, like, you might be working in Java and you haven't, had exposure to these other pieces, but that's something that should definitely not put someone off, because the main thing is to show your ability to learn and the eagerness to learn, right? Because there's so much stuff out there. Nobody knows everything. Anyone that says they know everything, right, especially in software, is just, they're not telling the truth. Everybody, you're learning all the time. So obviously a good Java background, C++, not a must. If it's there, great. But yourself, if you're good at Java, you're going to pick up other languages fairly easy. But from the point of view of the other stacks that are used, obviously if they're there, it's great and you got a bit of exposure, but it's something that you can learn and pick up. Yeah, so mainly just, if I was to give advice for someone going for a job or an interview, or especially with Openet, show your strengths. Don't be afraid to say that you don't know something. So if something comes up and you don't know it, that's fine. The main thing is to show your strengths and show your ability to learn. So the ability to learn is more important than knowing all the different things that the company does. Like, it's very rare that you're going to go from one company to another company and know all the different things in the tech stacks that you need to understand. But if you can prove or show, listen, I've done Java, I'm really, prove that your strengths there in Java, I've done this other thing that may be used in Openet, okay, you can show that. But if something else comes up and you don't know it, that's fine. It's completely fine. You don't have to know everything. Once you can show the ability to learn on the job and show what you know that you know quite well, and you can articulate it well as well. But to me, that's more important than, trying to get a bit of everything, or doing potentially some reading before on different pieces. That's fine. That's good. It's good to read up on the company, potentially get some of the tech stacks that you at least, all right, I know what that is, but I haven't used it in my day-to-day job, but I'd be willing to learn it, this type. So for me, that's more important than someone coming in and trying to show that they know everything about everything, So show your strengths, do a bit of reading on the company, and if you don't know something, it's much better to say straight away, listen, I don't know what that is, but geez, I'll be willing to learn this, it's exciting or whatever, So that's kind of my advice for people going for any job, really.